Hello, and welcome to Art Toronto, and I'm your host, Tony. The Toronto Transit Commission, or TTC, gets both praised and criticized for its infrastructure. So, is Toronto's transit system a master plan design or a complete disaster? Let's take a look at it and dive into how it's organized. In Toronto, to keep this simple, we have two main subway lines. One of these called Line 1, that runs north and south through the city, looping in downtown at Union Station, and then going up again. This creates essentially two main trunks that run north and south through the city, parallel to each other. The other one of these runs west to east through the center of the city, which is called Line 2. There is a very short line that runs along Shepherd East, but since it is so short, we can just really call this a feeder route. The Shepherd line essentially shuttles passengers from Fairview Mall or Don Mills to the main north and south subway line. There are then a series of surface routes that run throughout the city. Most of these are bus routes, but downtown, we do have our well-known streetcar network. The only streetcar route that is connected in Toronto to the network that runs outside of downtown is the St. Clair streetcar route. The rest of these routes that operate throughout the city of Toronto are all serviced by buses. The way that this is organized is pretty much all of these surface routes will connect passengers to and from the subway stations in a grid-like pattern throughout the city. The TTC is essentially a spoke model that allows point-to-point travel efficiently throughout the entire city. That is very simple and easy to understand. So what are the pros and cons about this network? Well, firstly, the coverage that is provided across the city is very extensive and well organized. You can pretty much catch a bus anywhere in the city within very short walking distance. This can then get you to a subway station or to a transfer point to another bus that you would need to take to get to your destination within the city. The TTC also has a very simple fare system, where you can use one fare for 2 hours within the city to transfer as many times as you need to in order to get to your destination. The bus service has three features that give it an operating edge in the city, and these are as follows. There is the express network of buses that operates on busier trunk routes during rush hour times to get passengers to subway stations faster. These will stop at major intersections and transfer points along their routes. There are then bus lines that are featured on some streets and on some routes that allow for our buses to have right-of-way during rush hour. This is being expanded on more and more routes and streets throughout the city, as it seems to be something that has proven to be helpful in expediting the movement of buses. Then lastly, we have the Blue Night Network. This is exactly how it sounds, where on major streets throughout the city, these overnight buses make the bus network a 24-hour system. So let's get down to it. Toronto is often criticized for its reliance on its buses to keep the system functioning, and its lack of infrastructure such as subways and light rail routes throughout the city. Let's start by talking about something that is an actual complete fact here. The only thing that could bring Toronto's transit network to a complete halt is if these buses could not operate. Every single time that there is a subway or streetcar disruption, the buses spring into action on a moment's notice as shuttle buses to replace these. The way that this is organized is actually pretty interesting, and maybe one day I'll make a video about how they are able to do that. The amount of buses servicing any specific route can also be increased or decreased within a moment's notice. Buses can be deployed on any new routes within the city at any point that it is deemed practical or necessary. Yes, I know that this sounds like I'm a big, huge bus supporter, but this is not about being a bus supporter. There are many ways that the transit system could be improved, which is a whole other topic, but I'm just explaining the reality of the system as it currently is. Our subways and streetcars just simply cannot compete with the kind of adaptability that buses can offer us, and the TTC has mastered the organization and usefulness of these buses. This is more so than any other city in the world that I'm aware of. Sure, there are things like complete right-of-way corridors for buses to run on through, like trains, but that really speaks to the infrastructure and not the organization of the transit system itself. Let's be real, our streetcars can be replaced by walking, but most Torontonians would rather have their arms chopped off before taking a jackhammer to our streetcar infrastructure. So if you're visiting Toronto, just go and enjoy a ride on the streetcar and stay out of the politics of them. We really stick to having our streetcars in this city. There are, of course, two huge downsides to the buses that cannot be ignored here in Toronto, which are mainly that they get stuck in traffic, where there is no right-of-way. The second downside to buses is that they have a hard time getting through bad weather in the winter, during snowstorms or ice storms, that we sometimes do have here in the city. But then again, other infrastructure such as streetcars and subways can also easily be affected by this, because these storms can also cause electrical outages. So I guess that's just another point for buses. Let's be honest, we don't really like buses, and we would obviously prefer to be riding on streetcars or subways if we could. But the reality, and my point here, is that while buses are the least appealing method of public transit in the arsenal that the TTC has, the TTC really has mastered the usefulness of buses in a large city like Toronto. While of course it would be better to have a subway stop close to everywhere in the city, and for that grid to be comprised of subways and right-of-way LRTs, but that's a whole other discussion to be had. So then what's wrong with the TTC and why does it get so much criticism? Well, the answer is simply that the TTC is collapsing under the weight of the increase in population that we've had in the city over the last decade or two. What was once a very comprehensive system is now subject to overcrowding, again, infrastructure, and vehicles now stuck in traffic. These were all not issues when the TTC system was originally created in the 70s and operated very well in the 80s and 90s. At that time, the system did a fantastic job at what it was designed to do. But the key word here is what it was designed to do. While it can be argued that another mode of transit would be better for most places, and that the city is lacking in infrastructure, in my opinion, the TTC has made the bus network as efficient as possible for a city of this size, and better than any other transit system that I'm aware of. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that buses are the best form of transit that we could have in the city, but just that I think that the TTC does a good job at making it work. What are your thoughts about how the TTC has made use of its bus network in Toronto? Let me know in the comments. I hope that you liked the video. If so, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed and want to be notified of new videos that are released, please click on the Art Toronto button here. This is the video that I would recommend for you to watch next, and I'm sure that you're going to love it. Here's the playlist for all of the latest in transit news and views that you're going to find very informative and interesting. And finally, here is the latest video. Thanks for watching and happy transiting.